volume. My volume is all the way up.
You may want to check the
You guys do the speaker
mute.
volume.
I'm not sure what it is, but we can barely hear you on this end.
Go to audio, and then under your computer audio settings, raise your microphone level.
Can you hear me?
Raise it all the way up.
Yeah, it's all the way up. I'm not sure what's happening here. Sarah, are you on?
There you go.
There we go.
Yes,
Okay,
I am.
now?
Perfect. Perfect.
Oh, great. Well, good afternoon. My name is Olufalani Bullock-Jones. Thank you for having me. Myself and Ms. Sarah Hughes from the Veterans Affairs Office will be co-facilitating today's brief. Just a little bit about myself. I am with the Center for Women Veterans, the Senior Program Analyst, and here in Washington, D.C. And I'll give Sarah an opportunity to introduce herself as well.
Hi, yes. Wanted to also make sure that that I can be heard. Is my audio strong enough?
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, good. Okay. So I'm really happy to be here today. I work with a design team that is involved in a number of projects with the Veterans Experience Office. And one of the main projects it involved understanding women veterans' experience with primary care at VA outpatient clinics. And so a little later on in the presentation, I'll be happy to share more details about what we found and who we talked to. So I'll turn the presentation back to Ms. Bullock-Jones.
Okay, great. I'll go ahead and get us started. Next slide, please. Next slide. Just to give you some background on the Center for Women Veterans, in 1994, public law established was required VA to create the Center for Women Veterans. What the main mission of our office is to advise VA and other stakeholders on policies and programs and laws related to women veterans. We also disseminate information and supporting the Independent VA Advisory Committee on Women Veterans. I always like to say that, in essence, what the Center for Women Veterans does is to ensure VA is doing what we promise to do for women veterans, and that is to ensure that they have access to quality health care, ensure that they're knowledgeable about their VA benefits, and their burial benefits as well. Next slide. As we can see on this slide, the women veteran population has grown. Roughly 15% of today's force is made up of women. And as you can see, in 1945, we were at 2.3%. Now we're over 350,000 women serving and also deployed in support of contingency operations since then. Next slide, please. And with that, women are one of the fastest growing subgroups of veterans. Our representation is expected to grow from roughly 9.5% today to 10.5% in 2020. Compared to our male counterparts, we skew younger and more ethnically diverse. Next slide. People often ask, why do we target women veterans, or why is there a Center for Women Veterans? Sadly, women who try to own their veteran identity not be treated with the dignity and respect they have earned. Here are a couple examples of times when women veterans have received spots designated for veterans. at grocery stores and came back to find nasty notes on their cars because they don't meet the image people have in their minds of what a veteran looks like. So when we're trying to reach women veterans, we're trying to overcome these obstacles. We're trying to raise awareness of veteran status and associated benefits, and the possibility of having had negative experiences when women veterans try to access benefits means that we must explicitly target women veterans. We have several, VA has several efforts or initiatives and campaigns that um, specifically target women veterans, and in a few slides I'll be sharing those initiatives with you. Next slide. So as Sarah mentioned, there was a design team that worked with VE to examine women veterans' trust in VA or with patient care. And when we looked at this score, we saw that women veterans' trust by gender was significantly lower or higher, I'm sorry, than their male veterans. So as we can see in this slide, women veterans 20% of women veterans feel that, that they do not trust VA for their care. Next slide. This is just another data or another showing of what the trust factor looks as per quarter in reference to 2017 and the first quarter of 2018. Next slide. And again, it's broken down by age and by quarter. Next slide. At this time, I'll turn it over to Pam.
Yeah, so we have just been talking about trust and looking at trust in terms of quantitative data and what that looks like on charts and graphs. On the other side, the human-centered design team goes in and tries to understand issues of trust in a more qualitative research method. So that involves many in-person interviews with women veterans. So that is what we did as part of a pretty recent project wherein myself and several other human-centered designers interviewed women veterans around the country to better understand specifically their experiences with primary care at VA outpatient clinics. And let's move to the next slide where we can share a little bit about who we spoke with. So I think that the important thing to notice here is we really tried to speak with a broad representative of women veterans. So spoke with women veterans from different states, from different service branches, from different service eras, women veterans who had served in all different capacities. Because we felt it was really important that if we were going to understand their experiences, that we would understand the experiences of the broadest group possible. So let's move to the next slide. So in general, we found that many women veterans experiencing primary care at VA outpatient clinics did not feel that they were in good hands from the start of their visit. Many of them had moments of care or moments during their primary care journey where they felt listened to, attended to, and well cared for, but that was mixed in with other moments where they felt not attended to and not respected. And so what we heard from them is that at the end of the day, when they have their primary care visit at outpatient clinics, they want to feel that every moment along the journey, starting from scheduling their appointment, going to arriving on site and simply being able to find their way through a facility, to the point of meeting with their provider, to the point of understanding and knowing what to do with their follow-up care, that they wanted to be in good hands at every single step of the way, and that was critical for them. Next slide. So I'm not going to read out every single one of these themes. We did find 5 themes across all of our interviews with women veterans. Instead, let me summarize again the gist of what we heard. Again, respect was really important, and a feeling of responsiveness at the primary care visit. And this was particularly important for women veterans that have experienced MST. As many of you may know, when you experience trauma, you have a very heightened sensibility and awareness of all kinds of emotional cues in your environment. And so if you pick up on negative cues, you feel them very intensely. So that again points to why that feeling of respect and responsiveness was so important to many women veterans. They also shared that they wanted to be treated as a person, not as a number or as a statistic. A direct quote from one woman veteran that always stays with me is this, and I'll just read the quote. "I want you to treat me like a whole person, not just someone assigned to you. I want you to care about me and not just your numbers." And finally, a number of women veterans that we spoke with were really interested in being engaged as a partner in their health rather than as just a passive patient to be talked to. Many women veterans shared that they know their symptoms, they know their own health, and that they would like to be asked about what they know of their own health, and to be engaged as a partner in their own treatment. Rather, I guess a way of summing it up is they wanted their providers and caretakers to talk with them rather than at them. Next slide. So this is visual that we created based on those interviews with women veterans, dozens of women veterans. The one thing that I want to, this is called a customer journey map, and it's often used in human-centered design. Again, human-centered design, a qualitative research method. So what this map does is offer a clear beginning, middle, and end point to the experience of women veterans at their primary care visit. So as you can see, the beginning of the primary care experience is scheduling, and then moving on to arriving on site, then moving on to meeting with my provider, then moving on to any trips to the pharmacy to pick up medication, then moving on to follow-up care and specialty care. So this may sound obvious, but I'm still going to share that these kinds of maps are really helpful with these kinds of efforts to understand healthcare experience, because they provide a very sharp and clear beginning of a healthcare experience and a sharp, clear end to it. And when we talk about healthcare, we're often talking about something that feels so broad and vague that if you have a map like this to refer to and to ask people about, then you, in a sense, you're all talking from the same page, or in this case, from the same map. 2 other quick things that I'll just point out about this map. What it does is maybe a little hard to see, but along the course of that primary care visit, we've placed little lightning, they almost look like little lightning streaks. And those lightning streaks represent pain points that women veterans experience all along the way in their visit. We also have put in little suns, like a sun in the sky, that represent bright spots or moments where things really went well with their visit. And we do this so as to, again, document the common pain points that women veterans are experiencing and the common bright spots that women veterans are experiencing. So, for instance, many of the pain points we heard from were scheduling an appointment was a pain point, meeting with a provider was a pain point, not necessarily because the provider has changed, but because the new provider hadn't often had time to read the women veterans record. So women veterans felt they had to start they had to explain their entire healthcare history over and over again. The third pain point that came up a lot was that moment in which they are assigned to special care. That was an interesting moment. But we did hear about bright spots too. Women veterans found trusted helpers on site at clinics. Those trusted helpers could be anyone from someone at the front desk to even their someone who is assisting with check-in. So again, that points to that importance of feeling cared for and responded to all along the way. Let's move to the next slide. Before I share a little bit more about human-centered design, I did want to share one more quick thought about the pain points and the bright spots that we heard from women veterans. One really interesting thing is that for some reason, the pain points seem to linger in people's minds more than the bright spots. So what we kind of found is that the math was you could experience several bright moments in your visit, but if you had even a couple of pain points, it was that pain point that women veterans seem to remember at the end of the day, which might ring true for any of us. I know I've been to my own doctor and had a great visit with the doctor, but was treated poorly at the start or at the end by other staff, and for some reason that's what stays in my mind. So just a note about human-centered design, which is the approach that we used for this qualitative research effort about primary care and women veterans. I'd say the grounding principle of human-centered design is that when we look at a system or a process, we always refer to the experiences of the people who are impacted by that process or by that system, in this case, the healthcare system. And we listen closely to their experiences, and we really use their common experiences as touch points. We'll ground any solutions or efforts towards solutions from that moment on. So it's really about always coming back to time and time again, bringing it back to in this case, the veteran. What did we hear from women veterans? What did we hear from women veterans? Let's not forget the common themes that they shared with us and integrating that into any solutions going forward. Next slide. I think just, again, ending on a positive note, I shared this before, but it is always good to hear that at the same time that women veterans are talking about a lot of their pain points, we heard from them that they want to be part of the solution and that they want to be engaged as partners in health efforts and other efforts. Again, one quote that we heard from one women veteran that summarized the feelings of Benny is, it's the last quote on this slide. We women veterans are our best advocates. Let's look for openings. Let's look for ways to advocate. Let's make sure that veterans are part of the solution. And that leads right into our next slide, which are a couple of questions that we were left with at the end of our research project. So these are questions that our team is still thinking about and looking for ways to basically parlay these questions into solutions, but I invite them for you to think about as well. So how might we foster more positive relationships between women veterans and their care providers? How might we create a culture where women veterans feel equally respected as patients? And how might we set expectations with women veterans so they understand what services VA can offer them? And I imagine since many of you are working on the ground and in community-based efforts that you may be already doing this. So it may be that many of these questions are already being answered right now. Next slide. And this is where I will hand over the presentation back to Ms. Bullock-Jones.
Thank you, Sarah. Next slide, please. So I mentioned earlier that women veterans do not feel recognized, but recognition of their service is not only outside of the walls of the VA. It also happens within VA with VA employees. Often, whenever I'm attending an appointment, or I've had the opportunity to attend my appointment at the VA Medical Center, I've been called Miss Bullock Jones, or they'll ask, is the veteran with me, or am I accompanying the veteran? So, within VA, we are doing our best to change the culture and to ensure that women veterans receive the recognition that they deserve and earn. So these are just a few examples of campaigns that's internal to VA, but we also invite organizations outside to be able to share these campaigns with their constituents or with their customers. And so it does not only have to be within VA. These materials are located online at Women Health Services. There's a link at the bottom of this slide if you're interested. Next slide, please. The Center for Women Veterans also have a few initiatives ongoing. Last year in 2017, we highlighted the Women Veterans Art Exhibit. This exhibit highlighted pieces of art from different women veterans. We selected 10 women veterans to spotlight their work. We also spotlighted honorable mention women veterans artwork, and we will continue to spotlight this exhibit as long as there's interest. If you or any of the organizations that you associate with are interested in having this exhibit travel to your location, please feel free to contact Center for Women Veterans, and we'll be happy to make sure that exhibit travels to your event. Next slide, please. And this year, 2018, our ongoing initiative is also the Women Veterans Athlete Exhibit or project. Next slide, please, and I'll just go over it because I do want to highlight the women veterans that we are highlighting here. So these two women veterans are examples of the exhibit that is traveling throughout the VA medical centers across the United States, and any organization that requests these exhibits to come to your location or their location. This exhibit is made up of 10 women veterans of different eras of service, different disability levels, ethnicity, and age group. And we're very proud of this initiative or this campaign that spotlights women veterans. I do want to make mention that this campaign would not have been possible without our partners, the Veterans Canteen Service, Team Red, White, and Blue, and the Veterans Portrait Project. Next slide, please. And internally, here at the VA Central Office, we spotlighted women veterans employees who work within VA Central Office here in DC. This project was actually started out in Oregon. Elizabeth Estabrook, who is the Women Veteran Program Manager for the state of Oregon, started this We Are Not Invisible campaign spotlighting women veterans in Oregon. And we piggybacked on her idea and brought it here to VA, and now we have interest of other VA facilities within the United States requesting this project to travel to their facility. So this is just an example of how we here at VA Central Office recognizing our women veterans. Next slide. Tony, next slide. Thank you. Last but not least, I do want to make mention that the Center for Women Veterans is on Facebook and on Twitter, so please like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. You can also contact us at VA Women Vets. If you have an interest or want more information about the campaigns and the exhibits that I mentioned earlier, please feel free to visit our website. There's an electronic version on our website, and there's a way to contact us if you're interested in the campaign or exhibit coming to your location. Next slide, please. Our contact information is here at 00w@va.gov. Shaka Khan Lee, who is the project manager at Veterans Experience Office. I'm not sure, Sarah, is she the project lead for this project?
Yes, she's project lead. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Her contact information is there, and Sarah Hughes, her contact information is there as well. Thank you for having the both of us. Do you have any parting words, Sarah?
I'm just welcome any questions or any inquiries that anyone on the call may have through email, through contact me via email. So I look forward to hearing from you.
All right. Well, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Alani, for the information you provided us with women veterans, and we'll make sure that your presentation goes out to everyone that's on this line and across the Continental District.